So how are the unemployment numbers and other economic factors figuring into the presidential campaign? Let's talk about that with Brett Sifling. He's joining us now. He's an investment advisor representative at Gerber Kawasaki, a wealth and investment management firm. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to start off because we're getting some reports coming out that former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is going to enter the Democratic presidential primary. Earlier this year, he said that he was not going to run for president. Instead, he was going to put money behind efforts to unseat President Trump. So if this is true, if he is actually jumping into this race, what does it tell us about the state of the race right now and the chances of the Democrats actually winning?
Yeah, Bloomberg nominee would be very interesting if he jumped into the race. I'm not sure if he could get the large population of the Democratic Party behind him. He would definitely get the liberal elites. He's obviously a very savvy businessman, and I do overall think that it would be great for markets.
All right, let's get back to where the economy is right now, because we do have unemployment sitting at a 50-year low. You have the highest workforce participation level in about 6 years. And as my colleague Dan Williams was just talking about, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's so rosy and peachy keen. And we have this new report coming from Brookings Institution, which shows that 44% of Americans age 18 to 64 are low-wage workers, and that the median annual pay is just shy of $18,000. So not all these jobs are as good as they're being made to be. So how is that going to play into this argument that the economy is the best it's been and unemployment is the best it's been in 50 years?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that tax reform, for example, has been great for the economy, and it's really put corporate America on a competitive level. I don't know if that's necessarily attributed to Trump, but more of the Republican Party as a whole, specifically Congress. And so at the end of the day, Trump was promising us, 3 to 4% GDP growth. We're now realistically looking at 1.5 to 2% prints. And so, while a lot of his policies are regressive and he's rolling back these regulations, I just don't think it's been as great as we were promised it should be, and that's kind of our outlook from here.
But even with growth slowing down 1.9% in the last quarter, does that matter as much if people are employed and they're going to work and they're earning an income? Does it matter when they go to vote?
I think it absolutely that Trump needs a strong economy and even a trade resolution to get people behind him again. He's falling behind even the Republicans that supported him in the beginning.
I want to talk about farm bankruptcies for a second here, because they're up 24% so far this year. Of course, this is a group of voters that have largely been very loyal to the president, even as they try to grapple with this trade war with China. Do you think that this voting bloc, do they start to move away from Trump at all, especially if a deal isn't reached?
Yeah, if we don't see at least, a phase one deal here in the near future, I can definitely see, those farm workers and manufacturing workers start to fall behind. And the consumer has really been the backbone of the economy and what's keeping it so strong. And if the consumer isn't have as much money to spend, then I, see his support kind of faltering there.
Yeah, it's certainly been the consumers which have really been propping up growth for most of the year. But overall, I mean, when you look at it, it does look like a strong economy to a lot of people. How do the Democratic candidates need to position themselves against what looks to be a very rosy economic situation right now?
Yeah, well, I like, Bloomberg would be a more moderate stance. Unfortunately, I don't think Elizabeth Warren is a solution. She just wants to kind of come in and tax everyone and really just lower the deficit. And I don't think targeting a specific segment like the wealthy is great for America overall.
Then what about the talks in the Trump administration of potentially another tax cut for corporations?
Like I said, the tax cut is great for corporate America. It really puts us in a competitive advantage, and we've seen that trickle down. And so if we did have further tax cuts, I would see, more stimulus.
Do you think that's really trickled down to workers, though? Hasn't most of that money gone into dividend payouts and share buybacks?
Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, a lot of Americans have 401ks, and this is how their retirement plans play out.
Okay, so just very quickly here, last question. What do you expect on the unemployment front right now going forward? Do you expect it to continue slowly ticking higher, or do you think it's going to sort of reach this plateau at this point?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat of a plateau. I mean, we're at pretty much full employment at this point, and a lot of these jobs that weren't counted in this last month were because of the strike for GM, and you know, once those come back, I think we're pretty much at full employment at this point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were quite surprised with the unemployment numbers that came out recently. All right, thank you so much for joining us, Brett Sifling.